Because it was a dangerous city that was not being run well, and it had.
We're not talking about that though. If you're sending ICE, if you're sending ICE into Minneapolis right now,
and gun violence rates are down across the country because of these deportations.
Alex Michaelson brought progressive commentator Tyler Cohen onto his show to face off with MAGA pundit Katie Zachariah over the major story dominating the news right now: masked ICE agents operating on city streets. Let's watch these clips together. I'm a longtime supporter of Tyler Cohen, and I think he consistently raises strong, well-grounded arguments. I'm less familiar with Katie Zachariah, but I'll share my reactions as the debate unfolds. Afterward, I want to hear your take in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into it.
Talk immigration now with our political panel. On the left, Tyler Cohen, who hosts the podcast No Lie with Tyler Cohen, averages over 200 million views a month on YouTube. And on the right, making her debut on The Story is legal and political strategist Katie Zachariah. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much. Welcome, Katie. Good to have you here for the first time. Ladies first, let's start with you. What do you think? Is ICE making cities safer or less safe?
I disagree with those people on the poll that say it's making it less safe. I emphatically and completely think that ICE is making our cities safer. What makes them dangerous and the presence of ICE is the violent rhetoric against the ICE agents. Democrat leadership spurring them on to go get out in the streets and fight them, calling ICE agents the Gestapo. That's Tim Walz said that about the ICE agents. That instills fear in people to go fight immigration officers that are doing their job. Let's backtrack. They wouldn't have to be doing this job had the border been sealed in the first place and proper immigration and border regulation were in place during the Biden and Kamala years.
What do you think? Less safe, more safe?
I think that it's not necessarily the rhetoric that's making this less safe. I think it's the fact that you have these inept, unqualified ICE agents who are shooting unarmed moms 3 times in the face because they wouldn't stop their car. I mean, it's crazy to think that the rhetoric, we heard from Jacob Frey, who is the mayor of Minneapolis, and he was saying, we're a community of peace. Don't take the bait, because we know that Donald Trump wants nothing more than to be a wartime president. And if he can't get it in Venezuela, if he can't get it in Panama, if he can't get it in Greenland, then he's going to send the military into American cities. He's tried to do it in the city that we're in right now, Los Angeles. He's tried to do it in Portland, tried to do it in Chicago, tried to do it in Washington, D.C., anywhere where he can incite violence so he can feel like a wartime president, so he can justify these troop deployments. He's going to do. And this is just one more iteration of exactly that.
Katie, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head. Renee Good drove into an officer with a car, which is a lethal use of force.
That's absolutely untrue.
Use a lethal use of force.
The sad part about that is that
lethal force.
The sad part about that is that
she drove her car. She hit the officer. It's I think debatable whether she was trying to hit the officer, but she did drive her car, and the officer appeared to be hit from at least some of the camera angles.
The sad part about that is that everybody can see with their own eyes, and so we can tell after having watched that footage. There were multiple gunshots where the officer, and according to the New York Times analysis of this, where we can all see, again, clear as day, that these gunshots went in her side mirror, in her side window. Her window was open. So there is no reason why this officer should have been using lethal force. We already know, by the way, that the officer should not have positioned himself in front of this car. But beyond all of that, when we hear from the right this idea that they're going to rewrite history and tell us not to believe our own lying eyes, it puts on full display the extent to which this is all being done in bad faith, all being done to justify this undue force.
Katie.
Lying eyes is watching an officer walk around the car and having Renee Good drive into him after he had already been dragged by another car 6 months earlier. And it is justifiable self-defense. A car can be a lethal weapon when used as such.
Right, when used as such, and that's not how he was using it. And if this officer...
Let her finish her point.
And he used justifiable retaliatory lethal force against a woman who drove into him. And that is you're saying that's don't believe your lying eyes. I'm saying they're asking us to not believe our lying eyes in defense of the ICE agent. And again, I go back to my original point. ICE would not have to be there had the Biden-Harris administration followed the law, had they enforced border immigration in the first place. No country, no sovereign country can exist without border regulation. We had over 10 million border encounters during Biden and Harris. That's just border encounters, likely 17 million or more illegal immigrants, people that came in unchecked. And as a mom, if I'm Renee Good and I have ICE telling me to get out of my car, I am going to get out of my car. I am not going to put my kids at risk, leave them motherless, and hit an ICE agent and create chaos. I think that was so irresponsible, and I'm in much disagreement with you.
But
Katie Zachariah flat out blamed the victim for what happened, basically saying it was her own fault she was killed. I've got to be honest. There's almost nothing that makes me more angry than hearing someone say something like that about this incident. The idea that she put herself in that position and it's her fault, especially when we're talking about a woman who left behind a child, that's just shocking to hear. So let's break down what we see in the video blow by blow, instead of just echoing talking points. In the footage, ICE officers approach a vehicle that is stopped across a residential street in South Minneapolis. One agent tries to open the driver's door and shout orders at the driver to get out. As the driver begins to move her wheel and drive away, another ICE officer, already standing in front of the vehicle, draws his weapon and fires multiple shots into the SUV at very close range. The vehicle then continues down the street and crashes. The federal government has described the encounter as the woman trying to weaponize her car and run over agents. Critics, including local officials and independent analysts, dispute that account and say the video doesn't clearly show she threatened them with lethal force. So arguments that she deserved it because she allegedly put herself in danger and that she was trying to murder ICE are not supported by what we can observe in the footage and the reporting that's come out. What we see is a confrontation, shots fired at the driver while she's trying to move her car, and a killing that's deeply controversial and has sparked protests and national debate.
to the point about, could there be more done to not create these situations? Because federal immigration enforcement wants to work with a lot of these Democratic officials in sanctuary cities and say, let us honor ICE detainers. Let us go into the prisons. Let us work with you so we can target the worst people and not have to go into the streets. But in a lot of cases, a lot of these cities, Minneapolis, Los Angeles, others are saying, no, we won't work with you at all. I mean, could that create a situation where we have a more safe situation?
The reality is that nothing justifies the force that we're seeing right now at the hands of these ICE agents. Look, I mean, if you're asking whether it would be easier if everybody just kind of laid down and allowed ICE to infiltrate the cities and do whatever they want to do, of course, but that's not what ICE is looking to do. ICE is looking to incite as much violence, as much pandemonium as they can, so that they can use that as justification to ramp up their operations. We know that these people, again, Donald Trump wants nothing more than to be a wartime president. Greg Bovino wants nothing more than to ramp up these operations. They revel in the violence, the chaos, the dysfunction that they're creating right now. There is no de-escalation happening in any of these cities. There was no de-escalation happening in LA, in Portland, in Chicago, in DC, and there's not de-escalation happening here, as you see the images beside me on the screen in Minneapolis.
I mean, do you think, Katie, that, what do you say to the argument that chaos is the point? That really what Stephen Miller and folks in the Trump administration want is for people to self-deport. And so having these images of ICE looking scary is kind of the point, so that it encourages people to get out on their own, which is actually cheaper.
Yes, and they want self-deportation. If they didn't have to send ICE in or go into any of these cities, I don't believe that they would. If everyone decided to self-deport, and I want to give a hypothetical scenario to your point. If Democrat mayors, and Muriel Bowser in Washington, D.C. actually really paired up in support of the National Guard to bring crime down in our city. Now, I know that's different from ICE, but she said, we're going to support the Trump administration because I care about my city and I want crime to go down. If, for instance, Karen Bass said, we want to see ICE, we want to see less ICE, and so therefore I'm going to encourage people to self-deport. I'm going to encourage people to listen to the authorities, to listen to the federal authorities that are here and in complete agreement and with the support of the supremacy clause of the Constitution based on federal law. I'm going to support this and encourage these people to exit on their own because they shouldn't have been here in the first place. That would de-escalate. If we had Tim Walz not calling them the Gestapo, that would de-escalate a situation. If they knew they didn't have to go into this marijuana farm right up the road in California and not have people coming after them and not be on the defensive, if these people would walk out and say, here are our papers, or here not, or I'm going to surrender, I'm here illegally, and are told by Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and other governors, this would de-escalate the situation.
First of all, if you don't want to be called the Gestapo, do not shoot unarmed moms of 3 in their cars. Second of all, if this is really about crime, how does that answer the question of native-born populations commit crimes at higher rates than immigrant populations? If this is truly about crime.
National Guard is in Chicago. For what? Did he say, I want the National Guard in Chicago to only for illegal immigrants? No. Why did the National Guard go to Washington, D.C.? Why? Because it was a dangerous city that was not being run well, and it had.
We're not talking about that, though. If you're sending ICE, if you're sending ICE into Minneapolis right now,
and gun violence rates are down across the country because of these deportations and
immigrant populations commit crimes at lower rates than native-born populations. So again, the question remains: if this is actually about crime, how do you answer for the fact that it's not immigrants who are committing crimes at higher rates than native-born
last word, because we're out of time. Go ahead.
Immigrants, illegal immigrants, and native population. 3 different categories. You are lumping in illegal immigrants and regular immigrants, which I don't think is a fair combination.
Undocumented immigrants and immigrants who are documented both commit crimes at lower rates than native-born Americans.
Although there's some on the right who would say being here in the first place is a crime if you don't have papers, but that's a whole other debate. Katie, Brian, thank you both for this debate. We appreciate it. It's one that a lot of people are having, and we appreciate being able to do so in a civil way right now. That's the only way we're going to get through this, is we actually talk to each other.
This was honestly one of the hardest segments for me not to jump into. I know people like to let the clip play out, but I've got to say it plainly. Shame on Alex Michaelson. Shame on him for repeatedly tossing the conversation back to Katie like this is some kind of legitimate both sides debate. He keeps framing it as, well, some people on the right would argue, and that's exactly the problem. What MAGA figures like Katie Zachariah are doing throughout this segment is pushing a dangerous, slippery slope. The implication is that we need an army of ICE agents, dressed like they're in Fallujah, roaming American neighborhoods, going door to door, demanding papers. Those aren't my words. Those are J.D. Vance's. And Katie's solution to all of this is basically, just comply, just roll over, just show your papers. That's not America. You can talk about crime however you want, but what's happening here isn't about public safety. It's about escalation. And you can see it all over Brian Tyler Cohen's face. He looks like someone who feels like he's taking crazy pills because he's sitting there while the host insists this is some kind of calm, civil discussion. This isn't civil. It's not polite. And one side is very clearly justifying violence. In this case, they didn't like the woman's behavior. They didn't like that she wasn't compliant enough. So they escalated. They tried to pull her out of the car. She turned the wheel to get away. The agent in front of the vehicle already had his weapon drawn before she cleared him. The car brushes him, and he fires 3 shots and kills her. Then he releases a video afterward, speaking calmly, calling her a vile slur, clearly feeling justified in what he did. And almost immediately, top officials come out with the script, she was a domestic terrorist. She was trying to murder heroic ICE agents, and he bravely defended himself. But we've all watched the footage. The disconnect between what we're told and what we can actually see is staggering. Then there's the outrage when someone dares to use words like Gestapo. If you don't want people making those comparisons, then stop acting like it. Flooding the streets with heavily armed, masked agents who escalate first and ask questions later is exactly how you earn that label. What's infuriating is that we're still pretending this deserves neutral moderation. Katie Zachariah's position isn't just another viewpoint. It's straight party line propaganda. The argument boils down to this. The car touched him, therefore he's justified, end of story. No accountability. No real investigation. DHS closes ranks, suppresses scrutiny, and that's it. He's judge, jury, and executioner. If you're siding with the Katie Zacharias, the J.D. Vances, the Stephen Millers of the world, then this is what you're endorsing. And some people genuinely want this. They think it's overdue. They think it will only target other people. Here's the truth. It never stops there. You don't get to opt out. You don't get to flash your papers and be spared forever. Authoritarianism always turns inward. It feeds on whoever is next until it collapses under its own brutality and incompetence. We've seen this play out throughout history, over and over again, and now we're watching an American version unfold in real time. I didn't want to believe it could get this far. I hoped we could stop it before it did. But now people are being killed in the street and the government is calling it heroism. So yeah, I'm fired up, and I want to hear from you. What did I miss? What stood out to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one.